All right, what is up, beautiful people? Sorry for the shit lighting. It's kind of fucking weird in here, but if I turn on the light, it's gonna create like this glare, like right in front of the camera, which is definitely not appealing. So, oh, wow. Anyways, so I actually came here with the thought, oh, never mind, here it is. No. So, as I said in the beginning of the video, I had my blood panel done and everything else and stuff. Basically, I started using gear back in September because I wanted to get my IFBB Pro card. I wanted to go into the NPC to begin with and everything else. So it's always been my dream as a bodybuilder to go this route. I started off competing as a natural for about 4 to 5 years, quite successfully. And definitely want to take it to the next level. So I decided to jump on gear back in September, and I think it's important that we're very proactive about managing our health, and we're also very serious about it too as well. There's a lot of things that you can do to protect yourself in terms of your cycling is the most important. I mean, and I'll talk about that later on, but supplementation, your diet, your training, all these things, they all play a role. So when people send me questions like, what do you think about this? It's literally like a drop in the bucket. It's kind of a stupid question, and it just goes to show that this person really probably has no business touching this stuff. So ideally, there's things that you want to look at, but before going to that, you want an established buy-in. So like, where do you stop? Where do you draw the line? Where does your health decrement get so bad that you literally say, I can't do this anymore and I won't do this anymore? For me, it's liver, cardiovascular, and kidney health. So once those type of things start to go south and I can't bring them back while on cycle, even with like the best protocols and everything in place, I'm done. My mom died from kidney failure. You know, my stepdad died from kidney failure. So, I mean, it's one of those things that's ever present in my life, and I see what it can do. I have seen what it can do to people. So these are things that are very preventable. They're very manageable. Obviously, it's a lifestyle change, but if you are on gear, you have to pay special close attention to these details. So, first and foremost, my non-fasting lipid panel. So my cholesterol was 219 milligrams per deciliter, so it's high. So you want it at, or below 239s. But anyways, my value was high. So it's not the worst per se, but it's definitely not where it needs to be. So there's things that you can do to lower your cholesterol naturally. You can eat more fiber, especially soluble fiber. You can decrease your saturated fatty acid intake. You can, manipulate your training. You can drive down inflammation. So if you have chronically high cholesterol, I highly recommend looking at your homocysteine levels and your C-reactive proteins, because obviously sometimes cholesterol could also be, high cholesterol could be a sign of high inflammation too, as well. So these are the things that you need to look at, so instead of like, oh my God, it's going south, take a step back, look at your diet, look at everything in its entirety, and just like, okay, make those adjustments. And if you start to see improvements, then you're on the right track. Secondly, you want to look at like your dosages too. Like if you're, let's say for example, HDL is super in the tank and there's nothing you really can do about it, then, obviously bringing down your dosages and implementing things that could drive up HDL, like increasing your MUFA and PUFA intake, especially like omega-3s and things like that, can definitely be helpful. So my triglycerides were very, very, very low. The range is like less than or equal to 879 milligrams per deciliter. So anything low to that is fine. Mine was 80. So it's really, really low. And one thing that I'll speak to that is that my diet is very high carb, low fat. So it's something that I started experimenting with because, short story, my cholesterol at one point was 450. And this is when I was doing like the bulletproof keto diet. and it was bad. It was really, really bad. Luckily, I wasn't on it for a long period of time. Unfortunately, I didn't check frequently after that. I was working through a naturopathic doctor, which I don't recommend. Go see a real doctor and get these things monitored, because anybody that shrugs their shoulders is literally not doing you any service. Like, you will fucking die. You will have a heart attack if you maintain that for a long period of time. But anyways, my HDL was 38. The range is greater than or equal to 40, so that's not too bad. I increased my omega-3s. I'm going to increase my other things as well too to help with that. My LDL was, you know, somewhat high, so you know, the risk is definitely moderate right now, so we want to bring that down. So the range is anywhere less than or equal to 159. I'm 165, so I'm not totally out of range. So if we're looking at the lipids, not too bad. CBC, red blood cell count, wasn't too bad actually. Hemoglobin, good. Hematocrit, good. Mean corpuscle volume, good. Everything else is good. My white blood cell count is actually high. It's really high, which is actually indicative of an infection. I got a nasty dog bite that actually didn't heal, and I was stupid because during peak week I had to take antibiotics and I didn't take them, so I'm actually going to have to start another course of antibiotics because my doctor suspects an infection and I do too. So these are things you want to kind of rule out. But the white blood cells are high, but not like astronomically high. Hemoglobin A1C, so my hemoglobin A1C is pretty high right now compared to what it has been in the past, and that's because probably the time I took this test I was eating like a complete asshole. I was probably slightly insulin resistant and things like that. So the range is less than or equal to 5.6%. I was at 5%. I'm definitely going to work on getting that down by bringing down sugar, processed foods, maybe even like introduce some meal timing type things like that to take advantage of insulin sensitivity during specific times of the day. My estimated average glucose was around 95, so the range is 85 to 126 milligrams per deciliter. So whenever you see that and you're worried about it, also get a urinalysis to see if there's any glucose in the urine, because obviously this can be indicative of, well, of pre-diabetes or diabetes. This is definitely something that I'm going to take seriously and bring down as well. Even though I don't have a family history of diabetes, that is not something that I am taking lightly. AST and ALT, out of range, but only by 1 point. So the range is 10 to 40 micrograms per liter. So I was at 41. I actually think that it was probably higher a couple weeks prior to this. I was taking Winstrol, Anavar, Clenbuterol, like, you know, diuretics, all these type of things that can definitely fuck the liver. So for me, it's one of those things that I'll keep an eye on it. I'm not taking any liver support right now. Started taking liver support as soon as I got my labs and everything, and then we'll look at everything else. I'm currently not taking any orals. I'm not taking any aromatase inhibitors or anything else like that. So we're just going to keep an eye on that and see where it comes down. Notice how I'm not being like, oh my God, scared and reactive, because you have to look at past leading up to this and everything encompassing, you know, the test. So, you know, understand that if it's really high, it's going to be like 100, and that's definitely something you're damaging your liver at this point. But right now, it's not in a good range, so we have to look at it. But we also have to understand, like, a ton of orals just came out too as well, so it may have been higher a couple weeks ago. We don't know. I'm going to do a follow-up in 6 weeks. Lastly, creatinine, and glomerular filtration rate, which I'll actually talk about in detail right now. So it's going to be a pretty long video. So creatinine was, and you know this, historically, I've always been at the high normal range. So the range is less than or equal to 1.34 milligrams per deciliter. I was at 1.21. That's not something that really scares me too much, because if you're weight training or if you weight trained very heavily, you're going to get a ton of muscle protein breakdown, which will raise your creatinine levels. If you're taking creatine, if you're dehydrated, and guess what? All those things were present when I took this. So I guarantee if I drank a lot of water, I didn't train that week, and all these other things, my creatinine level will probably go like to a lower range. So it's not something that I'm technically nervous about. The thing that you want to pay attention to is your glomerular filtration rate. So glomerular filtration rate basically indicates how functional are your kidneys, and that's the gold standard for indicating kidney failure. So a GFR of 30 to 59 equals stage 3 kidney failure, chronic kidney disease. Glomerular filtration rate of 15 to 29 equals stage 4. Glomerular filtration rate less than 15 is stage 5, which is basically you're fucked and you're probably going to you will be on dialysis. So these are definitely some things that you want to pay attention to. Mine was, greater than 60. It doesn't give me an exact rate, but greater than 60. So I'm like, literally my kidneys are like nowhere near, damaged or anything else like that. So glomerular filtration rate, so in the kidney you have the nephron and you have the Bowman's capsule, and inside you have the glomerulus. And what the glomerulus does is like blood goes into it and it filters that blood, goes into the posterior convoluted tubule, goes down, and as it's going through that nephron, things are being absorbed, reabsorbed, and things like that, like salt, sugar, water, essential proteins, and various others. So your kidney's function basically is dictated on its ability to maintain that, because once that starts to falter, you're going to basically be poisoning yourself, because you're going to have a lot of toxins and everything just not getting filtered and staying in your system, and this could obviously cause some issues, and this is why you have to go on dialysis once basically your nephrons start to shut down. What damages these things? There's a lot of things, like certain medications can damage the kidneys. Chronic use of antibiotics can damage the kidneys. Obviously a family history goes without saying, but high blood pressure is one of those things that will definitely damage the kidneys, because think of it like this. There's a certain amount of pressure, because everything works on a gradient in your body, that it has to enter that glomerulus to be filtered. And if it's just like literally getting hammered because your blood pressure is so high, it's going to be forcing itself through, pushing through, and it's going to go at a quicker rate. And certain things just aren't going to be filtered or reabsorbed within the nephron, and this is obviously eventually going to lead to a breakdown of that glomerulus and that nephron, and eventually you'll get to a point where your kidneys will start to fail and decline. Not something that you want to take lightly. So pay attention to that. If you are on gear, this is something that you check every fucking time. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So mine's good. I take a ton of kidney support. I take a ton of things for blood pressure. Naturally, my blood pressure is always in range. Just be smart. If you're going to do this, be smart. Be smart with your drug selection. Be smart with your administration, your dosages, everything. You don't always have to blast to take 2 grams of gear. You can maintain a decent amount of muscle just taking 100 to 200 mgs of test a week. And sometimes you need that. You need to pull everything out so you can correct all these things, bring your body back into balance, and just, like I said, just manage your health wisely, and understand that you're not going to be on the shit that you're doing for like 15 years either. Like for me, I'm giving myself 5 to 8 years. If I don't win a pro card, if I don't do well at shows, then I'm just going to go into a TRT dose, and then that's that. I'm not worried about fertility. I don't want to have kids or anything else, so that part is fine with me. So I'm not really worried about any like type of PCT or anything. So yeah, I mean, that's my blood work. That's where everything is at today. That is legitimately where my blood work is at right now. Like, I didn't lie about anything, so I wouldn't try to mislead anybody about my current state of health, because if I do start to see things declining, I think it's important for bodybuilders to be transparent, to monitor these type of things, and to be, very well aware of the risks and the rewards that come with, special sports supplementation. But we also understand there is no safe way to do this. Like, it's a gamble. Every time you pin something in your leg, it literally is taking years off your life. I don't care what anybody fucking says. Anybody that tells you otherwise is a moron, or they literally are delusional. You are taking years off your life. So for example, if I was gonna make it to 80, I'm probably only gonna make it to 70. But I'm okay with that. I am okay with that. I know that sounds like a fucked up thing to say, but winning that pro card and living my life to the fullest, even if I only make it to 70, is worth more than just playing it safe and just like, you know, and making it to 80. And I know that's a very morbid thing to say, but that's where I'm at with my life. But anyways, that was my blood work, everybody. That's where everything's at. Every time I get blood work, I will share it with you. But anyways, have a good day. Take care. Talk to you soon.